You're listening to Docs Outside the Box, episode 15.
Welcome to Docs Outside the Box podcast. This is your official show, looking inside the minds of cutting-edge and innovative doctors. Think you'll find these stories in any medical textbook? Sorry. You're getting real live insight from men and women pushing the envelope beyond medicine. Ordinary doctors doing extraordinary things. Let's start now with your host, Dr. Nee Darko.
Welcome back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm your host, Dr. Nee Darko, and I am really excited to bring to you my next guest. First, I want to thank you again for coming back to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. My next guest is Dr. Nicole Swiner, and she truly is living outside the box. Not only is she a physician, she's also a local and national speaker. She's an author. She's a social media coach, and the other thing, last but not least, is she runs her own publishing company. It's a pretty big deal. And the name of her publishing company is dubbed Swiner Publishing. Her interests and passions lie in women and minority health, pediatrics, stress management, as well as self-care. And soon after becoming an attending, she started writing medical advice for her local newspaper. After a while, after several years, she noticed that her topics covered very similar themes, and she was able to take all of this medical advice, all of this knowledge, and create her first book, which is called How to Avoid the Superwoman Complex, 12 Ways to Balance Mind, Body, and Spirit. And you can find this, you can buy this right now on Amazon. Links will be in the show notes. But this book focuses on the notion that trying to be, quote unquote, all things to all people, end quote, could be part of the reason why people are not truly happy and healthy. So this book is a guide for recovering superwomen. And look, before I even go any further, guys, this book is not just for women. This book is for us also. So don't scoff at this. It's not just for women. There's a lot of supermen out there also, actually including this host. So I could actually learn a lot from this book. And the book is here to make it a little bit easier and less stressful to take care of myself, yourself, as well as your family. She also has another book, which is called The Superwoman Complex, a follow-up visit, which you could also find on Amazon. Once again, the links will be in the show notes. And this was released in August of 2016. For her undergraduate education, she attended Duke University and went on to medical school at the Medical University of South Carolina. And then after there, she decided that she wanted to be a family medicine doc, and she completed her residency at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. She's a Tar Heel. So overall, what I want you to learn from this episode are, even in the age of dwindling private practices, you're going to learn why she prefers private practice to being hospital employed. You're also going to get her definition of the Superwoman Complex. You'll also learn quick tips on how to create content and become a published author. So for all of you guys who are thinking about wanting to become an author, how do I find information? This episode is for you. You'll also learn how she learned the importance of self-promotion, as well as how to be very comfortable with promoting yourself. You'll also learn the what and the why behind Swiner Publishing Company. And last but not least, you're going to learn how she answers my hashtag, I'm not just a doc. So look, without further delay, let's get on with the interview. Back at it again with another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I have Dr. Nicole Swiner,
Hello.
author. Hey, how you doing?
Good.
I didn't get a chance to finish, but I'm going to let you finish it. That's how excited she is, everyone. How you doing?
I'm good. Go ahead. I just want to say hi.
Well, I have Dr. Nicole Swiner, who is author of How to Avoid the Superwoman Complex, 12 Ways to Balance the Mind, Body, and Spirit, and is now, author again of the follow-up of the Superwoman Complex, or How to Avoid the Superwoman Complex.
That's right.
So now you're author times 2 now. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Both books are available on Amazon. Well, before we get too much into the nitty gritty, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So my name is Nicole Swiner, and I am living and residing and loving Durham, North Carolina. So hello to all my Triangle folks if you're out there. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina. But grew to love this area as I came for undergrad at Duke University, and graduated in 2000 from there, and then went back home to Charleston to the Medical University of South Carolina to do medical school, and then came back to the Triangle to go to University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill to do my family medicine residency. So since then, got my first real job, and I've been here ever since in Durham, and we have a home here with my husband and our two crazy little girls, two little toddler girls, well, big girls now.
Full house.
Yeah, big girls now, 3 years old and 5 years old. And so, just trying to figure out this whole new routine lifestyle. Everything kind of happened in a whirlwind. Also, docs, I'm sure you're familiar with the whole, delayed gratification that comes with school and grad school and
Tell me about it.
Getting comfortable in your new job. And then you're like, oh yeah, life happens too. So, getting married and kids and all that. It's been fun, interesting, and hard, particularly for me as a woman in medicine, and started out working in Durham with the practice that I'm currently in, but we started out as a hospital-owned clinic through UNC. And that was, that was great. That was wonderful. I was comfortable for the first 2 or 3 years. And then the hospital decided that it wanted to move out of the Durham community because it, had other competition like Duke and other types of, larger practices in the area. And they said, well, we're building all these other practices in these other areas. Why don't you guys come and follow us out there? The folks that you've been serving in Durham for 10 years, it was an established practice even prior to me joining. And so they said, the 10,000 patients that you've been serving for the past decade, they'll find other places to go. Don't worry about it. We'll move you to these bigger, better, more expensive practices out in Raleigh and Cary where we're making all this money. And, let's keep doing what we're doing, but we got you. We got you. We want to take care of the docs that have been with us. And myself and my partners looked at each other and said, no. We moved to Durham for a reason. We work in Durham for a reason. We want to stay in Durham.
That's what I'm talking about.
So, which was crazy because none of us had any business experience, zero business experience. None of us had MBAs, so it was the love of what we were doing that kept us together. And, praise the Lord, we've been able to get some smart business people on our team. We've been working with a wonderful management group, and we've been in private practice now for, 6 years ago? So, we've learned the ropes. We've had ups and downs, but thankfully we've endured, and the majority of our patients believed in our mission in our practice and said, okay, I'm going to stick with y'all. You're convenient. This is where I live too. I'm going to stay here with you guys. And so it's been a blessing to do that. So I'm still with Durham Family Medicine. And that's kind of my bread and butter.
Well, what I was going to ask though is 6 years in now, you've been able to determine the difference between being a hospital employee or being a hospital employed clinic versus now you guys are private practice. Can you speak to that? Is there any difference at all?
Absolutely. So you eat what you kill.
Mm-hmm.
So when you work for a hospital setting, which was perfect for me, fresh out of residency, because again, like I said, I had zero business experience, zero. I did not have an MBA like some of my counterparts, did, or, went back to school and got their MBA degrees or got their MPHs and got more experience. But I was just as happy, coming out, letting somebody else do the billing, the coding, the insurance, the human resources, and just pay me, write me a check. I was perfectly happy. And that's actually, that's what I thought I would do for the rest of my career. But then as you work in medicine and start to see changes that you want to make, or you're in your own little area and you're like, well, maybe this would work better for my population. Not all populations are the same. And in family medicine, since we take care of, cradle to the grave, there are a lot of little nuances, socioeconomic things get in the way, racial, financial things get in the way of you doing what you want to do for that patient. And when you work for a hierarchy, where you work for a bureaucracy, you don't get to make those changes, or it's not easy to make those changes because it has to go up the ladder, it has to go to the right people, the higher ups, and prayerfully they agree with your decision and it makes financial sense for them. And so then they give you the yes, or it doesn't make sense to them and you get a no. And there's nothing you can do about that.
Which one do you like better?
Definitely independent, definitely private practice. So it's hard because, like I said, you eat what you kill. So if you decide that you want to take a vacation for 2 weeks, just know that if things aren't in the right balance, you might not take home a paycheck for those couple of days. But I would rather the burden be on me than someone else at this point. I love the fact that if I decide to not work Fridays, which I did this year, I made that decision, that's my decision. And, as long as my group is comfortable with that, then that's what I do. If my kid has, rehearsal or has a dance, what do you call it? Recital. And I want to take that day off because I want to take her to practice, I can do that. I am the higher up at this point, So I wouldn't give up the independence for anything at this point.
That's what's up. I feel the same way. Now, I'm partly hospital employed, but I also work locums, and that locums life, like you said, it's you eat what you kill, but also at the same time, that independence, that not being affiliated with a hospital is something that it's so like invigorating. It's just like you're your own small business. Right. Your name is your business. There's nothing like it.
That's right. It's scary at first, but it is worth it.
Now, take us through the timeline of how you created How to Avoid the Superwoman Complex, 12 Ways to Balance Your Mind, Body, and Spirit. I'm going to continue to pitch this book throughout this podcast. And it came out, December of 2014?
That's when I kind of started the process. The book was officially published March 2015.
Okay. All right. Tell us about that book. What made you decide to write that book?
So as we made our transition from hospital owned to private practice, of course, we saw the need, and we were involved in the community to begin with. My partners were very community driven, did a lot of community service in Durham in the Triangle area. But of course, when I came on, I was the only the only female. My other partner is of Indian descent, but I was the only female or the only Black female there. And so I felt like, okay, I look like a lot of our patients. I need to go out and, bring some in, talk to people, do our thing. And so in doing that and going out to churches, going to some of the community events, I met a young lady through a local newspaper, a local minority-owned newspaper called the Triangle Tribune. And I pitched myself as, hey, I'm a newbie in this area. We're looking for new patients. I want to be involved in the community. Have you guys ever thought about having like a column written by a medical professional? And she was like,
self-promotion.
Right?
Nice. Okay.
I didn't even realize at the time that's what I was doing, because
Okay.
My focus at that point was getting more patients in the door. And also, like I said, meeting people. I just bought a house in Durham, so I wanted to get involved in the community. But, little did I know at that point that was my start to this whole writing thing. So started writing for this small paper in the area, starting to get a little bit of recognition, invited out to churches, invited out to programs. And with that came my interest in social media. Facebook.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that later on in the show. I've seen that you actually have a coaching gig for that.
I do. But I was not into it at first at all. My husband had to convince me to get onto Facebook. Because I was just like, I don't want people to know my private business. I don't want our pictures to be everywhere on the internet. And he was like, no. There are a lot of I tend to think he's a business guru because he does some marketing and graphic design and social media stuff. So he was the one that ushered me into this whole social media world and said, it's free. Number one, that's it. So that's a huge deal. It's free for now. You can use it for what you want to use it for. You can set your settings so that it's, your stuff isn't anywhere you don't want it to be. But it's a great way, now that you've been doing this writing, why not spread it? Why not be able to share it to people in different states, different cities, different countries even, if you're really trying to do this for real? Okay. So that's how I started to kind of spread this message of just kind of basic family medicine, but largely oriented in minority health, women's health, pediatrics, because those are my passions. And as that happened, I started noticing my colleagues around me doing blogs or writing articles for other papers or other magazines and really making a business out of it. And I said, how cool is that I could be sitting at home on my off days, or I wrote this article for this paper, but I could put it into this other magazine and make it work for me. Don't reinvent the wheel.
Cha-ching.
Right? Uh, and then, of course, they would pay you a couple of dollars to feature you. And I was like, how brilliant is that? So developed a blog. And then after about a year of doing the blog consistently, I said, look at this. So the example that I use a lot is that, and hopefully I won't get in trouble for this, Diddy published a book about Kulo.
Kulo!
Yeah, he published a book about that and made all this money. I said, how come I, as an MD, with important things to say, how come I couldn't publish a book? I have important stuff to say too. And
why don't we do that more often? Why do doctors discount themselves all the time? Have you noticed that?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know. Because I don't know. My excuse was I didn't go to school for that. Or, I spent all this money, all this time, all these years struggling and suffering so I could become this MD. This is what I'm supposed to be. Not understanding that, hey, maybe I love writing. Maybe I love publishing. Maybe I love speaking. So I want to do that too. So that's literally how the book came about, is that I was doing the blog for a while, was getting some great feedback, particularly from, as I became a wife and a mother, I started writing more about working mom things. And, I kind of grew this group of other working women or, either work from home moms or stay at home moms that were like, yeah, girl, you're right. I understand what you mean. And we could build this rapport together. And I said, this message needs to be heard. We're not superwomen. We don't have to kill ourselves and try to be perfect all the time. And I said, if Diddy can write a book, so can I. And that's how it happened.
So did you, while you're writing this book here, Karen White playing in the background?
That is absolutely what I heard.
I'm not even going to try to sing it, but you know what I'm talking about. The audience member is Karen White. I'm not your Superwoman.
Superwoman. That's right. And when I debut the book, there's this event called Women's Empowerment that we have every year here in Raleigh, Durham. Okay. That was the theme song.
Oh, really?
They played it on the radio with the advertisement, and it worked very well. So yes, and I've followed her on Facebook, and she is aware of the book and thinks it's very cute.
Now, when you wrote the book, or when you decided to put all of these stories together, take us through the process of creating a book or even getting it published. How difficult is it? What were some of the potholes you went through? What's some advice you can give to some of the listeners out there who are thinking about doing something similar?
Yes. So, number one, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Anybody can write a book. Anybody. So whether that's getting some huge deal with a huge publishing company where they pay you tens of thousands of dollars to write the book and have control over that, or if you go through Amazon or another self-publishing company that helps you to write the book yourself, anybody can write a book. It is not as hard as you might think. So that's the number one thing. The pitfalls are, outside of the fear of doing it and saying, well, I went to school for this, I can't really do that, is making sure that you're not hemorrhaging money to get it done. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get it done. You can, by the way, I'm doing a little side pitch. So I help people do this, by the way.
Oh, you keep stealing my questions, Dr. Swiner. All right, for everybody that's listening, everybody knows, Dr. Swiner, let me tell you right now, I've stalked you already. All right. I've got all your questions. I have all the questions lined up, and I was getting ready to go into your publishing company. So since you let the cat out the bag, tell us about Swiner Publishing, please.
Well, no, so I'll go back. Let me answer your first. So the first question is, the pitfalls of doing this on your own. So you don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars. It's easier than you think. Don't be fearful of jumping out there and doing it. Even if you don't feel like you can sit down and actually pen a book from start to finish, a lot of us have interests like Dr. Darko, like other folks in our field. We do blogs, we do podcasts, we have important things to say. After you've done that for about a year, you have content. Don't reinvent the wheel. That's your content. Take that content, chop it up, make it, put it into chapters, make it concise, and there is your ebook. You can publish it on Kindle. You could, have an audiobook. You can go on acx.com and publish an audiobook. There are many different ways to become published. Don't be afraid to try that, and don't spend thousands of dollars to do it.
Now, someone told me about that. So you're talking about, for example, let's use me as an example, as a test case. You're saying after a year, take some of my interviews or all of my interviews and just transcribe them and just kind of chop them up into something concise as advice for doctors who are thinking outside the box, something like that.
Absolutely. How long have you been doing your podcast, by the way?
Since April.
Yeah. So, in 6 months, next month, you will have done all these interviews. Why not take, of course, with the permission of folks that you've interviewed, why not take them up, make different chapters, and produce an audiobook on your own, or type it out, transcribe it and type it out, and produce an ebook on Kindle. I mean, it's easier than you think to do that.
I've always wanted to get some coaching on the podcast.
Yeah.
So appreciate that.
Yeah, you can do it.
Is your bill in the mail?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So are we at point 2 or did you get to point 3 on the book?
Those are my big things. Okay. So pitfalls are, number 1, don't be afraid and don't spend a whole bunch of money doing it. And God bless if you are good enough. I wasn't able to go the route of asking a big publishing company to sponsor me and to pay me to publish a book. But my fear with that, even if I did have someone offer me a big check to do that, was who has the rights to my stuff? I want to ultimately have rights to my stuff, So now that I've been in private practice, I've been independent, I'm addicted to owning my stuff.
Rightfully so. Right?
And so at the end of the day, make sure that you have the rights to your content, your words, your idea, your brand. You own it, not somebody else. And that you have to be very careful with when sponsors, when publishing companies, when brand experts are writing you a check to help you with your brand. You have to make sure that that contract specifically says, at the end of the day, if I don't agree with this partnership, if I don't like what you're doing with my brand, I walk away with my book. It's mine. So be careful for that.
Audience, did you hear that?
Own your brand.
Now, family medicine, author, public speaker, and now Swiner Publishing. How did you get to that point? Take us through that.
So after I published the book, and in the process of writing the book, like I said, I learned from my colleagues around me. I was following other folks on social media, meeting people out in the field at events and conferences that were doing the publishing, the author gig, seeing what they were able to achieve with that, doctors and non-doctors, and saw that I loved speaking. I loved to be in front of a group, whether a small intimate group or a large group, particularly of, like I said, working moms. That's kind of my niche. I loved being in front of the crowd and asking shooting questions and answers back and forth. That became my passion. So I knew that
your talks are real dynamic because I saw them on YouTube.
That's
pretty
sweet.
impressive.
Thank you.
I mean, that goes along with me stalking you. So.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that because I'm still, I haven't done like the true training to be a speaker. So I'm very raw, and I still even stutter sometimes, or even tremble a little bit when I speak. But I like the intimate group setting where we can shoot questions back and forth to one another because that's fun, and that's where the real learning happens. I think people get that take-home message and know how to take better care of themselves. But in writing the book, I knew that ultimately I want to do more speaking. So I learned from others. I asked for feedback, and knew that I wanted to get my foot in the door with other conferences, other events. I knew that also the more books you write, the better it is because people, when they're looking for conference speakers, when they're looking for workshop leaders, they want to see who's the quote unquote expert. And your book, or the more books that you write on a certain topic, makes you look more like an expert. So I knew that was going to be, the next step. So as I'm waiting and hoping and wishing for people to invite me to their thing, I said, well, why don't I could maybe create my own event, my own conference, my own company where I wasn't, sitting and hoping and waiting for somebody to invite me. I have my own thing. And that's really how Swiner Publishing came to fruition, because then as I started talking to people about what I was doing, they started asking me questions like, well, how did you do it? And what are the pitfalls? And I wrote this book in college, but I don't know how to get from point A to point Z. Can you help me? And I said, hey, another side gig. Perfect. I can show people how to do this. And that's how it.
Another slash after your name.
Side hustle. That's what it's about.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's how it happened.
Now, how long have you been doing this type of service, publishing service?
I signed on my first client right after I had my conference in January. So it's been about 9 months now since I've been doing the publishing stuff. Yeah.
Wow. Now, what is okay? In 5 years, are we talking about like a full-fledged publishing company you're looking to be, or what's the long-term goal?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I think so. My ultimate goal is to work smarter, not hard. So the more stuff that I can do sitting at home in front of my computer or remotely, I'm in, wherever, Canada, Hawaii, but I can still talk and do and write remotely and take less time at work, seeing my patients 9 to 5 and all that. That's my ultimate goal. So whatever can get me there, I'm open to, whether it's doing telemedicine, like via the computer, where I'm seeing patients, but we're seeing each other on the internet via the internet, or I have a client or two that I'm helping to, publish their book while I get to the next event, the next speaking gig. But I don't know. I might have a mixture of all that to get me to where I want to be. I don't know.
So author, physician, mom, wife. I gotta take a big deep breath until the next one. Publisher. So, all right, I want to know, how are you able to balance all of these things together? And then the second thing I want to know is, how lucrative is what you're doing outside of medicine compared to medicine? Is it something that you think eventually you could just say, you know what, I'm just going to continue to be an author and a public speaker and do that and kind of just use that to replace your clinical medicine income?
So how?
That was a long question.
Yep,
sorry.
So how do I do it? Number one, Jesus. Give all praises and honor to the one above. Number one. Number two,
Right.
I have a phenomenal support team, both paid and unpaid. The primary person being my husband. I have a phenomenal life partner in Rick Swiner, and I realize that that's not the case for everyone. So, I feel very sad for those who don't have that loving partner, that loving spouse, that relationship that keeps them uplifted. And that is ride or die. I mean, he is. That's what it is. So he, is one of those very secure, manly men that was absolutely okay with taking a step back and working from home so that he could help raise our babies while I worked my 9 to 5. Not many men can do that nowadays.
Not many. Yeah,
right?
Not many.
Securely. And loved it. If you asked him now, the girls are a little bit older, they're in school now, but if you asked him now, does he regret staying home for those first 2 years with each of them? He would say absolutely not. He loved it. He would not have had it any other way. So the fact that he has been there pushing me, supporting me, listening to my crazy ideas and saying, absolutely, you can do that has been a tremendous reason why I've been able to do what I've been doing. So that's huge. And if you don't, just for my listeners, if you don't have that partner, that spouse, that relationship who is down for you, and you should be down for them too, so take turns, so right now I'm doing my thing and I'm, pushing this book and pushing these speaking things, and he's all in. And so in another season, it'll be his turn. He'll be doing his thing, and I push him just as hard as he's pushing me. So if you don't have that, you need to reassess. Okay?
Find it.
Preach. That's number one. So that was number two. Number three, I have my times where I'm I am very serious about being relaxed, about being lazy when I need to be lazy. I'm not working 24/7 because I just can't do that. For instance,
So you have downtime then?
Absolutely.
Real downtime.
For real downtime. Like,
okay.
I go to bed. My average bedtime is 9:30, 10 o'clock every night.
Whoa.
I am not playing about sleep.
What time you wake up?
I wake up if I have to take the kids to school, then I get up around 5:45, 6 o'clock.
Okay.
So I get a good solid 7 to 8 hours sleep every night. I turn my phone off. I have to turn it off. I wear a sleep mask to cover my eyes so I can't see the light. I'm serious.
Melatonin?
Melatonin, hello. But no, I'm in my first book. It's so serious. I named my first chapter "Sweet Sleep." Like, I'm very focused about sleep. So I get a lot of sleep. When I'm at home, I try to be present at home. Now, for instance, as we're taping this, my kids are taking a nap. So I try to work around their downtime, or if I weren't on this podcast, I would be napping with them. I sleep when they sleep. I try to sleep when they sleep, or I try to do a little bit of work when they're asleep so I can have some quiet time and not be crazy with looking at the monitor and seeing what they're doing while I'm trying to get things done. And then I'm very serious about couple time, quality time. We have date night once or twice every month. We try to do it once a week. We're very serious about our team of babysitters. We call up, the young folks that don't have kids at home or want to make a little bit of extra gas money, get them over here, and we go out and we hang out and we reconnect with each other. So that's how I try to stay sane.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. So you stay grounded.
I try to. I try my best.
Now, in terms of financial reimbursements, I guess, or how lucrative it is with your stuff outside the hospital, is there any, are you seeing similarities? Is one better than the other? You don't have to give us, I don't want to be all in your pockets, and you can tell me, back up, you know what I'm saying? Get your hand out my pocket.
Get your hand out my pocket.
Remember that? Yes. But just in general, similar, not too good, getting there, where are we at?
Yeah, no, seeing patients is still my bread and butter. Can't lie about that. So as of right now, I'm still working full-time 4 days a week. This year, I made the decision to stop working Fridays in an effort to give myself some downtime and to give myself some Swiner Publishing time to do that. But no, I could not live on just my outside stuff alone at this point. Now, God willing, as time moves on, as I get more publishing clients, more speaking gigs, the higher level paycheck that comes with that down the road, then hopefully I could be part-time, like literally 50-50, or maybe less than that in the clinic. That would be great. I don't know if I would ever fully give up medicine, seeing patients, because I do love that. I just don't love it every single day.
I really appreciate you being honest about that answer. Because I think that leads to some of anxiety, at least with listeners or even physicians in general who are thinking about, transitioning to a non-clinical career or is thinking outside the box. Can I maintain the same salary or something similar in a different field that's not clinically related? So I do appreciate your honesty on that one.
Mm-hmm. And it takes time. This is my second year with doing the outside stuff, so I'm sure it takes time to build. I think I'm slow walking it because, again, I've not been paying the big bucks for all these coaches and PR firms and speaker groups, and I've not done. We're doing a lot of this on our own, so we're slow walking it, and it takes time to get to that level. So we're just going to take it one step at a time. By next year, I'm hoping to maybe just be 3 days a week in clinic. But we got to look at our numbers.
Always reassess, right?
Yep.
Now, what's been the feedback from your colleagues?
In the clinic or college?
Yes, within clinical medicine.
For the most part, they love it. They love that I'm doing it. A lot of them have had the same types of aspirations and desires, and they're like, wow, well, if she can do it, then maybe I can do it too. So a lot of them love it, and they are very supportive, very congratulatory, and ask a lot of questions. And a lot of my publishing clients I get from that, or a lot of my social media folks, folks that want more training on social media, I get from my colleagues that are like, wow, I want to do some stuff like that too.
Now talk to us about your course on social media.
Mm-hmm. So I haven't quite developed a course. I have this one. I did a webinar earlier this year on social media for beginners. And it came mostly from another group that I'm working with on another project. And I said, well, I can use what I'm teaching them, a group of docs, and spread it to anyone who is a novice in social media or, has gotten their feet wet but wants to increase their following, increase their engagement. So I have a webinar that I produced that teaches about social media. But what I do with that consulting gig is just, again, when I first started this, even before the book was published, I started the whole social media thing probably about 5 years ago. 2011, yeah, 5 years ago. And I've learned along the way. I've read a lot of articles. I'm following those who are huge in social media, both in my field and outside of my field. And I've learned a lot from them. And I come across a lot of my folks, especially I hate to say my older folks who know, like, they know about Facebook, but they're like, what's a Twitter? What's a tweet? Or
the Twitter,
yeah,
the Twitter, or the Facebook,
the Facebook, and the Periscope. What do you mean? I can talk to people on my phone, So I love meeting folks like that. So I'm, because I can teach them small things, not overwhelmingly, but I can kind of teach them little nuggets that they can take home and be successful with, and I like that. So that's what I do. And then for those who have a business or a book or a product that they want to grow on social media, actually, can have little workshops with them where I teach them or show them how they can increase their engagement on social media as well.
People who are interested in this, they can find this on your website or on Facebook?
Both, either or, but DocSwiner.com is my website, and that's where I kind of keep everything. Or you can, Doc Swiner on Facebook. I'm everywhere. Find me on Instagram.
It is true. You are everywhere.
Everywhere.
Working with medical students or with residents, do you have any advice for them? Do you oftentimes see them looking at you and saying, hey, I want to get to your level. What do I have to do to get to your point?
Yes. So, since we started out as a UNC clinic, we've always had medical students and residents that rotate through our practice. Since we're one of the few, or we were one of the few community practices through the hospital. So it was great for the students and the residents to come out and see how, quote unquote, the real docs were doing it. So we've continued that. So I continue to have rotations of medical students of different levels and residents that come, that we mentor, that do rotations through our practice so they can actually see what my life is like versus just kind of, looking from afar and wondering what it is to be an outpatient family doc. And I'm a little bit atypical now because, I'm not your usual family doc because I am doing this other stuff. But I think it's even more of a wonderful experience for them to see that too, that you can have this life outside of the clinic and do what you want to do. So I love meeting students who want to be an orthopedic physician or want to be, or always thought they were going to be a GI specialist, but then come into my practice and I've been able to flip them. And now they want to do primary care. That's the ultimate success to me, is flipping someone who thought they wanted to do something else into a primary care physician, or someone who wants to do their medical thing, but always had that dream of starting another type of a business, or, they've always been an entrepreneur at heart and they were afraid to step out there and do it. I like engaging them in those types of conversations too. So I do that regularly.
Now, one thing I noticed is a lot of physicians who have their persona as, whatever their name may be, doctor, what, and then they have their regular persona, and there's a difference or a distinguishment between those two. How about you? Is there a difference between Nicole Swiner and Dr. Swiner, or is it basically all the same?
That's a good question. Doc Swiner is more of my outside persona, I think. So, Nicole Swiner, Dr. Swiner in the clinic is your family doc, your friend, your handholder, your supporter. I'm going to help you figure out how to be healthier. Doc Swiner is my persona on the outside. I mean, I still incorporate medicine. Medicine will always be a part of what I do. So I still incorporate the clinical side of things of me, but I also talk about the real stuff. So, yeah, we know what we're supposed to be doing to ward off diabetes and cancer and high blood pressure, but how do we really make that real? How do we make that fit into what we do as a working mom, trying to, keep everyone satisfied, trying to keep ourselves healthy? How do we really make that happen? And how do we be happy? How do we remain happy in life? So are you getting sleep? Are you, exercising? Are you getting a massage? Are you truly happy in the relationship that you're in? Do you still love this person? How do we get out of an abusive relationship? So I take the Dr. Swiner stuff, the clinical stuff, and try to make it real to real life. particularly for women.
So you have multiple personalities, I guess.
Kind of. Kind
Yeah.
of. I'm a psychic case.
Now, talk to us about self-promotion, because you described that in your first foray into writing when you did your column was based off of you just self-promoting yourself to the newspaper. What is it? Why are physicians so shy to do that? And I agree that, you know, we're so focused on studying that we kind of feel like self-promotion or, you know, doing something that's outside of the clinical realms of the hospital is not within our purview. But why aren't more docs jumping on the self-promotion bandwagon?
I think because of what you said, we weren't taught to do that. We were taught to either be humble and, you know, be the long-suffering physician that, you know, you're there just to help others, and that's really all you were built and educated to do, or, you know, depending on what type of environment you trained in or what type of physician you are. Some of us can be very narcissistic and say what's for me is for me and I don't want to share it with anybody else.
Right.
So, you know, in anything that you're doing, particularly if you have these side hustles, these side gigs, don't be afraid to brag on yourself a little bit. I mean, like I said, anybody can publish a book. We have all these books and people that are doing these things that they feel that are important. You know, we have important things to share with the world too. So don't be afraid to do that. It's not bragging. It's not being selfish. I think you're actually being more selfish by not promoting yourself as someone who can help somebody.
That's a good point.
Right?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Share your gifts with the world. It's okay. It's all right. You can humble brag a little bit.
Now we're going to do some quick, fast questions as we're getting towards the end of the interview. Are you down?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So what's one thing you want listeners to get from this podcast?
To not be afraid to step out there and quote unquote be a doc outside the box.
Love it. Love it. What can the audience expect from you in the next 10 years?
Ooh, more books. More books.
And slashes.
And slashes.
After the name. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. And what's one piece of advice you can give physicians who are on the fence about leveraging their knowledge for a more public persona? Public persona.
Like Nike, just do it. Why not? Why not? What do you have to lose? Just do it. You'll always have your medical career to fall back on. You can always go back to seeing patients for the rest of your career, 9 to 5. Why not jump out there and do something you're passionate about? Whether it's jump all the way out there and leave the clinical side behind, or do it, you know, kind of piecemeal it together like I'm trying to do. But ultimately, be happy about what you're doing.
You're good at these answers.
I've learned.
Knowing what you know now, you're getting a chance to talk to medical student Nicole Swiner. What's the advice you're going to give her?
Remain confident. Remain confident.
Okay.
I struggled a bit in medical school.
Tell us about that.
I did. I struggled. My first year, I didn't think I was going to make it. My grades weren't great. You know, my MCAT scores weren't great. I was great face-to-face. Like if you had questions to ask me, I could talk to you all day and explain things physiologically. But if I was in front of a computer, multiple choice, had to pick the right answer, I still struggle with test-taking anxiety to this day. But just be confident. Know that the light is coming, that the clinical rotations are coming where you're actually going to deal with real people and not the computer and not multiple choice questions. But just remain confident. I had to get some counseling during that time just to make sure that, is it me? Is it because I'm not smart enough? What am I doing wrong? So yeah, just stay confident. It gets better.
Dr. Swiner, thank you very much for being open and honest about that. Seriously, I really appreciate that. I think the audience is going to appreciate your candor. I think we relate to people who are more like us, and not everybody is going to do extremely well on MCATs or, completely cruise through medical school. So that really helps. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
So this last sentence I want you to finish. I don't know if you've listened to my previous shows, but it's a sentence that I present to all of my guests. And it's, I'm not just a doc. I'm a... Now for you, I'm going to see if you could try to keep it to one word.
One word.
No, I'm joking. You could do slashes if you want afterwards. But for you, Dr. Swiner, I'm not just a doc. I'm a...
Chameleon.
Dang, that's really good. You've been practicing?
That should be my line name. It was online for.
Oh yeah.
It ended up being something different, but it was going to be that.
When did you cross?
Huh?
When did you cross?
When?
Yeah.
Or spring '99. Delta Sigma
Okay.
Theta. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I love the answer. Dr. Swiner, thank you so much for being on Docs Outside the Box. I really appreciate it. I really have learned a lot from you. I'm impressed with you. I admire you. I think the audience is that much better for hearing your podcast. And I can't wait to see all the new things, all the exciting things that you're going to do. So keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, sir. And I'm proud of you, too. I'm a fan.
That is it. Episode 15 is officially over. It is history. Thank you so much for listening. This was a really fun interview. I'm sure you can tell I had a lot of fun doing this interview. And as you can hear for yourself, Dr. Swiner, she's so dynamic, energetic, engaging. No doubt. Look, this is not going to be the last time that we're going to be hearing from Dr. Swiner. So listen, thank you all for listening. Also, remember to send your feedback to me, via all the different ways that you can reach me on social media, either through the Docs Outside the Box Facebook page, as well as Twitter at DocsOTB. I also have an Instagram account at NiiPDarko, that's spelled NIIP as in Paul, DARKO, as well as email at DocsOTB, that's DOCSOTB at gmail.com. Also, look, if you're finding value in this show, please help me to get this show to grow. Help me to get this show in front of other people's views who are looking through various different podcast directories. So please take about 45 seconds, use the links that are in the show notes to go to iTunes, Google Play, as well as Stitcher Radio, and just leave me a 5-star review. It really helps the show to grow. And look, hey, you know what time it is. Remember to live outside the box.